As a beginner who paints every single day, I make mistakes all the time. And today I'll be sharing the 5 that are most common. Some of these have even made me want to quit watercolors altogether. So here's the plan. Watch this video, learn from my mistakes, and just get better and better at watercolors every single day. So I guess the most common mistake beginners make is using too much water. I mean, who hasn't done this? It is classic newbie mistake. We want a really light transparent color, so we keep adding water to our paint, right? And then we just load up our brush with that color mix and we go directly onto our paper. Except the minute that brush touches that paper, unless we're doing a big wash, it's game over. You'll get all kinds of puddles, particularly if you're working on cellulose paper. You try and ignore it, except when you go to dry it, it's dancing around the page and making a big mess. The solution here is pretty obvious. The before solution is whipping your brush tip on some paper towel or a bit of cloth before moving on to the paper. That way you can remove the excess water from your brush before you even start. Now the after solution is dabbing the puddles with a dry brush or some paper towel to absorb that extra water before moving on. And you can tell all that's bad about using too much water in this very simple example I just drew for you guys. I mean, look at this. You have the one with the extra water that's all sort of hard edges. You have the cauliflower effect. It's all spotty and whatnot. And then you have the one where we used the right amount of water and it's perfect. It is completely balanced. It is a solid color. It is transparent. It is beautiful. I mentioned cellulose paper, and that actually got me thinking about a really big mistake most beginners make. I have said it before and I will say it again. Paper trumps paint, trumps brushes, trumps the whole thing. So as a beginner, if you're going to invest on anything, invest on 100% cotton paper. So I guess the mistake would be to use crappy paper. So here I have 100% cotton paper. This is ours, and here is Fabriano. This is 25% cotton, I think. Now these are both medium grain, cold pressed. They are very similar except for the fact that this is cotton and this one isn't. Let me show you the difference in how they both perform. Now for one thing, we have the water absorption, okay? 100% cotton paper absorbs much easier than cellulose. Cellulose puddles. And as beginners, it really isn't something you want to have to deal with all the other things you have to keep in mind as you paint. Also, you know, the vibrancy of the colors as you put them to paper is completely different. I mean, look at that. Now, I remember vividly how it felt the first time I tried 100% cotton paper. It was Academy from Bao Hong, and it just changed my entire watercolor journey. After many months of using Canson Excel, I was pretty sure I wasn't cut out for this, that I would never improve. I was disappointed with every single thing I painted. It was crap. And then I decided to try 100% cotton paper, you know, not even the most expensive kind on anything. And it was like my skills went up just like that. The difference in the results are unbelievable. So yeah, my paper was holding me back, and your paper is probably holding you back too. Now, for our third mistake, we really have to talk about this. I believe we all make this mistake, and for me personally, it's something that just gets me so frustrated, so intimidated, so scared, that more often than not, when it happens, it just keeps me from picking up the brush and painting altogether. I just give up and go do something else. So imagine this, you decide you want to paint on a certain day, or maybe you're trying to paint every day to improve faster. So you sit in front of a paper, you set out all the materials you need, and you just freeze because you have no idea of what you're going to paint. You pick a pencil and try to draw something, anything that comes to mind, except nothing does. So you're wasting countless time trying to force that inspiration and nothing is happening. And guess what? It's not supposed to. We keep putting pressure on ourselves that we should know what to paint from memory and we should be able to sit down and draw something to paint, but that's not how this works at all. I would say professionals paint from pictures or other image support like 90% of the work they do. They don't just pick a brush and go at it, not for the most part. These videos we watch on YouTube, it all looks so spontaneous, but it's not. There's a lot of planning involved. And a lot of them don't draw either. They just use light pads and other methods I've shown you to transfer line art to paper, and then they paint. Even if they do know how to draw, most often than not, it's not something that just shows up for them the moment they want to paint. So as a beginner, the best advice I can give you is take pictures of the things you want to paint, create a file with loads of photos so you'll have plenty of options when you decide to do it, and then if you can draw, just sketch it looking at the photo you've chosen, or print that photo and use it to create line art for you to paint after. Do not stop yourself from painting just because you can't create something in the moment, okay? It really does not work like that. Mistake number 4 comes totally out of impatience, and as the most impatient person I know, I do this one all the time. Not waiting for those layers to dry is probably the #1 reason why I ruin my paintings. And I own a heat gun, okay? I just don't use it long enough, or I'm convinced the layers are dry and I could go on, except the minute my brush touches that paper, all my layers and all my paints just start to bleed into each other, and it is a train wreck from then on. Damp paint is not dry paint, and damp paint is not your friend. So make sure your paint is nice and dry, particularly if you're using a heat gun. Wait for the painting to cool down completely before checking to see if it's damp or dry. I'm getting annoyed just thinking about it, really. Now, I guess you could say that our 5th mistake also comes from impatience, or maybe that's not it. Maybe it's just our inability as beginners to see the big final picture. This mistake is to paint details in our first wash, or as I heard someone say the other day, putting the icing on before even making the cake. Watercolor is all about processes and patience, so taking a step after the other is a big deal. But it's also a bit daunting for us beginners to be able to imagine what a painting will actually look like in the end when we're just making a big blob where our object will be. So as beginners, we tend to want to add some details in that first wash to help us see it, but also because the details are a lot more fun than the first wash, right? And why is this a problem? Well, first because you're adding darker paint to begin with. So instead of a light, transparent first layer, you're already introducing stronger colors because you can't add details in transparent paint, right? That means that when you add other layers, those details will just get darker and darker and very much overworked. But most importantly, it's like we're making a building, okay? We're building a painting, let's say it like that. So we start with a foundation for the whole thing, right? And build from there. If you're adding details section by section instead of building the whole thing layer by layer, the painting won't be as cohesive, okay? You may end up having different sections of intensity and color, for example, or one bit more detailed than the other. So yeah, looking at a painting like a building that you're building from the ground up as a whole, instead of building the left part and then moving on to the right part of your building, will really help you with your watercolor evolution. What is your beginner watercolor mistake? Is it any of these 5? Please leave me a comment below letting me know. I hope this helped, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye!